everybody. I am Sharon Elizabeth Coburn Robinson, Principal Director, the Bureau of Gender Affairs, the most exciting place to work, and that is a part of the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport. Sharon Coburn Robinson is effervescent, vivacious, resolute, responsive, resilient, and radical. The Bureau of Gender Affairs is the national machinery for gender affairs. We have a responsibility to ensure that women and men are able to access benefits, resources, and services on a basis of equality. So in terms of strategies, we have a number of strategies, and I must say one of them that works very well is engagement, meaningful engagement. What do I mean by meaningful engagement? It simply means consultative approach, making sure that persons who are a part of whatever it is that you're doing, if you're doing a plan, creating a program, designing a project to roll out, that you get the persons who are going to be beneficiaries of that project or program or plan to be at the table. Let them talk about what it is that they want to see done, how it will affect them, how it is that is going to benefit them and their families, and how it is that is going to be across not just a national reach, but a regional reach and a global reach. Did a course in Gender and Development Studies at the UWI Mona campus. And in doing that course, I learned that gender is a lived experience. And one of the reasons I saw lived experience as important is that nobody can take away your lived experience. Whatever it is that you have experienced at whatever point in your life cycle is something that is irreplaceable, is something that cannot be removed unless it is you choose to remove it. And even if it is removed, it can be a part of your psyche. And if it is that it is an unpleasant experience, you can actually get support to help you to remove or to replace that particular experience so that it becomes something pleasant. You can use an unfortunate experience which is a stumbling block, as a stepping stone. You can use it as a pivot and as something that will allow you to be able to step forward. Okay, so I started at the Bureau of Gender Affairs as a research officer. But prior to being a research officer, I worked as a teacher, a classroom teacher. I taught language and literature, and I enjoyed my days as a language teacher, except that many times I had to rewrite those scripts because I found that quite a few of my students were not avid readers. And so not being avid readers meant that they were not very copious writers. And sometimes the creativity just would not flow. They could speak the language, but sometimes could not write it. And so I decided I wanted to move into another space that would allow me to use my skills and not necessarily rewrite scripts. So I did a course in Gender and Development Studies. That was a master's course. And of course, I applied out from the job I was in, that's teaching. And I was extremely ecstatic when I got a job. That's like 15 years ago. I got this job in 2006 to start off as a research officer. Now, as a research officer, I was extremely ecstatic to get a job using my skills in gender, as well as having a background to teaching and using social policy framework, just being able to look at what is happening in people's lives and how we can make a positive impact on their lives and how we can use people's lived experience to shape other experiences for other persons and to ensure that persons get the best that they can out of whatever it is that is being offered. So the next level was that in 2 years' time, I was promoted as research coordinator. And the research coordinator is the improvement on the research officer. Now, that's a supervisor who supervises the research officers as well as the librarian. Another couple of years, I was promoted again as Director Policy and Research. And this time, I was heading up the Policy and Research section. So I had responsibility for policy analysts, research officers, and the librarian. A couple of years later, I was promoted as senior director when my previous executive director left. And so I worked as senior director for a couple of years. And then that post was upgraded and retitled as principal director. And here I am as principal director and very ecstatic about the fact that I'm able to move in this space basically because of stewardship. I consider myself an excellent steward. I exemplify uncommon stewardship because that's what has been placed in my spirit. and I love my job. And so for me, it's not just coming to work and earning, but it is doing my part in this world to see how many persons I can help as many times for the day and as many hours as possible, as many persons for the greater good. So I absolutely enjoy my job. So my younger self would be proud of who I've become because, as I said, principal director, the expression principal director, the acronym PD, to me, represents something that I knew of myself when I was a girl. So I have not said to everybody at all times, but there is a story that I have that I share sometimes. And it is that at 16 years, I became pregnant. And for me, the PD there means pregnant and disillusioned. My family were very upset with me, particularly my dad, because he felt that he had invested in me. And having invested some money and resources and time and energy, he was very disappointed. And so I was pregnant and disillusioned. The Women's Center became my escape route. That became my panacea. That became my pivot. I was able to use the skills I learned at the Women's Center to be able to return to formal schooling. And having returned to formal schooling, I determined in my spirit that I would do the best I can and help as many persons as I can. And that's part of the reason why I believe this PD, which is principal director, is a transition from PD to PD, from pregnant and disillusioned to principal director. And so I'm able to do so much because of the fact that I have a story that I can use to turn my experiences that were negative into positive experiences every single day of my life. The most rewarding thing about my role is that I get to meet so many new persons every day, and I get to impact the lives of people in positive ways. There are so many ways that we can impact persons. But when I think of COVID-19, for example, there were so many stories of persons who needed support. And the Bureau of Gender Affairs was one of the places that they came for refuge. A lot of the women and girls were affected. And as you know, women and girls are disproportionately affected by natural disasters. And of course, COVID-19 is really high on the list of one of those natural disasters, or just something that affects you and sort of like gives you a 360 degrees, where it spins you around in another direction. And you have to now say, how do I recover from this? And so we became the go-to place for a lot of women, a lot of girls and their families. And I was extremely ecstatic that I was getting support from other spaces. I did not have to call on some of my partners. They called on me. So I'll get a call or an email to say, hey, we have some funds in the Agenda project. We have something in this kitty. How would you like to get support on this? Do you have persons who can go out and give out these care packages and dignity kits and so on? What are the levels of support that you need? And I was extremely bowled over by the fact that there was so much altruism and so many persons who wanted to assist. And so we were able to help so many families. I was happy at the end of the day when I saw the smiles on their faces and the person just coming back and giving testimonial, bawling tears about how happy they were. And then, how did you know that my fridge was empty? How did you know I had no money? How did you know the children were bawling for hunger? And so when I saw how much we were able to assist them in COVID-19 particularly, I felt encouraged. And I said, if I do nothing else in this life, I want to make a positive difference in the lives of families, particularly women and girls, because they are disproportionately affected and they are the bedrock of the family. The family depends on them. And were it not for women and girls, a lot of what happens to families would probably not happen, because sometimes men have good intentions, but they might not be able to do all of the things that women and girls do because they're wired to do that. They have caring characteristics. They have characteristics that say they will go the extra mile. And although we have men who can do this, sadly, we don't have as many men. And so what we do is to partner with men. One of the things I also like about this job is that while we are pushing for the empowerment of women and girls, we also bring men and boys along with us through programs that we've initiated. Programs like the Young Fathers Initiative, where we recognize and appreciate and support young fathers who saw that they needed support and either called for help or we reached out to them. We partnered with other men who were doing exceptionally well in their spaces, men who were examples who could assist those boys to be able to say, I will help you to be a father to this child or these children that you have, because you don't have a manual that tells you how to do it. And you might not even have had a father who was there for you. And so I will step up to the plate and work with you. We've seen success stories. We've also had programs like Amazing Dads that we've worked with Mogava, that's Men of God Against Violence and Abuse. We've also had a mentorship program where we mentor boys who might not even be having a father or a father figure in the home, or just having issues, truancy at school, having issues with leadership. How do I make decisions? How do I treat girls? How do I do relationships? How do I manage myself and my time? And what we've had is those men who come forward to say, even in communities that the boys are not achieving, we've had persons who say, I will go in and speak with them and do an inspirational piece with them. Just sit and reason with them. Let them just talk about what's happening to them. Share my own experience with them and help them to come up with a bag of strategies.